Audio recording for this meeting has begun.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for our First Friday webinar. Today we're very excited to have Josh Gana and Kathryn Magura join us to tell us all about the brand new association master plan. So thank you, Josh and Kathryn, for taking time out of your busy day to present to us this information today. Both of them are on the Master Planning Committee for Northwest ACUHO and have in-depth knowledge. And in fact, Kathryn is the chair of that committee. So thanks to her leadership, we were able to get this together this year and chart out the next 5 years. I would like to remind people to please fill out the webinar feedback form. Even if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, make sure that you fill out the feedback form so we get your feedback and know exactly what to do to make this program better for you. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Kathryn and Josh.
Well, thanks, Craig. This presentation is a result of over a year in the planning process on this specific plan, but it also steps back into the depths of history of the association to get us where we are today. So before we jump into some of the specifics of the 17 to 21 plan, I want to cover a little bit of detail on where we've come from as well as where we're going. So Northwest ACUHO, as best as we can discern, started back in the early 60s as an unincorporated group of housing professionals that would get together from time to time to share best practices. They started the conference, and we not that long ago celebrated our 50th anniversary conference and have started looking forward from there. The first records we can find of any substantial formalization of the organization was in 1977 when the original constitution was written. There was an executive committee and a president selected, which indicated a shift to more of an organized model of program delivery. Between that time and 2008, the association was humming along and offering an annual conference and a variety of programs, but back in the mid-early first decade of 2000s, we recognized that it was time to take that next step of formalization, and that as a informal group, we were incurring some liability and structural issues that were limiting our future growth. And so we filed articles of incorporation as an Oregon nonprofit public corporation, which kind of paved the way to, as we said, shore up some of the organizational practices and get the business house in order. In 2011, we received our determination of tax-exempt status under the U.S. tax code, which was kind of that final step in formalizing the business processes of Northwest ACUHO. And at that point, the tide shifted to really looking at program delivery and offerings versus kind of business and administrative stuff. And so 2012 was the release of the first master plan. And the master plan was an attempt to provide longer-term continuity and growth according to Northwest ACUHO's program objectives. And we had found that kind of year after year, we were having some of the same conversations as a board and leadership team. And the master plan was looking to kind of get out of that cycle and say, okay, let's over a 5-year period, identify core areas of Northwest ACUHO program and continually advance those over a longer term than one president may have in their oversight or one board. And so that 5-year master plan was ambitious, and it gave us an opportunity to 5 years later look back and say, yeah, we have moved the organization forward significantly. So that plan expired, and we hit 2017 this year, which got us into the second planning cycle, which is where we're at today. Some of the highlights of the original plan, again, indicating that shift from kind of organizational development to program development, we thought it was really important to start with an organizational identity. And we had various mission statements and other kind of core statements that had been sprinkled in previous bylaws and constitutions. But this was an opportunity to step back and say, okay, who are we as a professional association? Who do we want to be? And from that came a vision statement, tagline, and a mission statement. And by developing those right off the bat originally, we were able to use those to inform what the content of the plan was. The plan was focused around 5 focus areas: core purposes, financial stewardship, governance, member engagement, and partnerships. And the approach was within each one of those areas to identify where we were at that point in time and where we wanted to be in the next 5 years, and then develop a plan to kind of bridge that gap. And we'll talk about how that got reevaluated over time in a little bit, but that was the approach and where these focus areas came from. The tagline that was developed as part of that planning process was pretty simple and straightforward. It's enriching the housing profession. And so that kind of provides a one-sentence description of why do we exist, what do we do, without a bunch more words to it. So kind of crisp and clean and fresh. The vision and statement, which is kind of more long-reaching, a target goal, is that Northwest NWACUHO wants to be the higher education housing industry's leading regional association by providing professional enrichment that enhances the residential environment. And this was really important and foundational in that it centers that residential environment, which then directly connects to our students and residents as the core. And so we are a professional association. We exist to serve professionals and kind of bring up our staff. But at the end of the day, the end goal of that is the environment on our campuses and the students that take part in our programs and services. But that also kind of positions us and makes it clear that Northwest NWACUHO is not necessarily intended to offer direct student programming, but it's more the staff that support those students. By the way, if folks have questions, we are monitoring the chat box on and off, and so you can either wait until the end or sprinkle them in throughout. That's fine with us. The core purposes that were developed are a description of kind of more specifically what Northwest NWACUHO exists to do. And at the point in which we developed the original plan, we had 4. One was to promote best practices within the industry. One was to encourage professional development of staff. One was to foster the collaborative sharing of ideas, and then to examine future industry trends. And as you kind of look at what Northwest NWACUHO does in our programs, you'll see most of them are shaped around one or multiple of these core purposes.
So as we were coming to finalize the first iteration, as we were finishing up the first master plan, we decided it was time to start planning out the next group. And so for the 2017-2021 planning timeline, here's kind of where things took shape. So after the conference in Alaska in February 2016, the master planning group was commissioned. So again, we were coming to the end of the first master plan, and it was time to start the preparation for the next meeting, next group. In July of 2016, the group took advantage of the fact that we would all be in Seattle for the NWACUHO annual conference and had our inaugural meeting. Then in November 2016, we had a master plan retreat in Portland, Oregon, and really honed in on where we saw the master plan going. Finally, in January 2017, the board of directors was updated on the new master plan. And then at the conference this last February in Spokane, the board approved the master plan and it was presented to them. So the planning team for the 2017-2021 master plan was Tina Fuchs, who was a Northwest NWACUHO past president, Josh Gana, also another past president, and then the presidential trio for that timeline. So Brian Carrick was our president-elect, Craig Whitten was our president, and I was the chair of the committee as the past president at the time. So what we did, getting ready to launch that master plan and come up with the next steps, is we really wanted to get information from the membership on how they thought we were doing and what was going on. So we sent out a census in September of 2016 to really get information from the membership on what do you see as important things for the group, for the Northwest NWACUHO Association working on for the next master plan. So out of all of the membership, we had 127 participate in the master plan census, which is a really good return rate in terms of participation. And it was nice to see that we had a diverse range of experience within the housing profession participate in that survey. So you'll see there we've got the percentage breakdowns, and it might be a little bit hard to read, but the majority of the people who took this survey had been in the profession for more than 11 years. And then the next grouping was less than 3 years, and a lot of in between. So we really had a wide variety of experience within housing give us their feedback and share their voice in this master plan process. Within that census information, we also had a variety of levels within the profession. So we had the majority of the participants were mid-level, which is fairly representative of our field in general. Then the next majority was entry-level. And then we had a very significant amount of senior level professionals providing their feedback too, which is really great to see because that's an area that, as we'll talk about in a couple of slides, has been, we'll say, a growth spot for Northwest NWACUHO. We haven't had a lot of engagement with our senior leadership. We also had a fairly good representation from the variety of states and provinces within our region, and I'd say that this breakdown here is fairly representative of our overall membership as well. So what else came from that census? We had some major themes come through, and this feedback was really valuable to the master planning team as we met in November of this last year. We went through the comments and the feedback from that census and really used that information to shape the master plan. So while we had a team of 5 working on the master plan, and then the board of directors working through, who will be working through those themes, the plan itself really came from the feedback from membership. So some of those themes were a desire for more intentional outreach and integration into the association leadership for senior housing officers. And that's something that, again, I was just talking about. We had a significant number of senior housing officers who took the survey, but I think that feedback came from all sorts of participants.
Yeah, and Kathryn, I think it's important.
Also indicated a request to have a greater. Go for it.
Oh, I think it's important on the senior housing officer theme to note that this is more focused on enriching the overall association by participation of senior housing officers versus kind of a specific focus on their experience. And so we believe that there's a depth of program that is offered by having exposure for our mid and entry-level professionals to those senior leaders. And so the goal of integrating them is finding ways to engage and hook them so that they can add additional depth.
Yes, thanks for that. And that is feedback. When I was president of the association, I heard from a number of senior housing officers on how they wanted to be utilized more within the region. They wanted to know how they could help get to know some of the entry-level or mid-level professionals and help them grow in their careers. So thank you for that clarification. Participants also indicated a request to have a greater level of transparency in the funding models of the association. A number of areas within our region are fairly financially strapped at this point in time, and we need to make sure that the board of directors and everything that they're doing for planning the budget are being transparent in that funding model. We also had a lot of feedback about the need to strengthen the diversity and social justice work of the association. There was a desire to have a greater level of connection to other members outside the conference. And again, we're a fairly unique region in that we are the biggest in terms of land mass, but the smallest in terms of membership. So it's really hard to get members from Oregon and Alberta connected to each other outside of the conferences, as an example. So how do we ensure that members such as in the state of Alaska who don't get to attend conferences very often are integrated as well? And then the last theme that came through in the census information was that participants would like to see the association work towards electing a board of directors that truly represents the myriad of professionals in our region. And again, it's ensuring we have accurate representation in the leadership. After we did this census, we also worked to get corporate member feedback. Our products and services now director, Joe McQuillan, and President Craig Whitten did a survey of our corporate members to get some of their feedback in terms of what are they looking for within the membership and from Northwest NWACUHO. So some of the themes that came from that was they think Northwest NWACUHO represents good value for money with the current pricing structure, which is valuable feedback to know as we map out future conferences. Corporate members also feel that they are members of the association, which I think is a reflection of the smaller size. It's more tight-knit, and they feel that they can be part of the association with us, and they're not just an exhibitor that we want money from. Corporate members also wish to be more involved with mid-level and senior housing level institutional members. So again, we have a lot more entry-level and mid-level staff coming to our conference, and they may not be decision makers in terms of buying. So how do we connect corporate members with those senior level staff who do have the buying power. Corporate members wish to be able to give feedback or to give back in more direct ways. That's something I believe the board of directors will be working on even more as we plan out new conferences in the next cycle of conferences. And corporate members and exhibitors want more opportunities to connect with each other to better serve our institutional members. And again, I think our small size helps make that a little bit easier because there's more ways to connect those exhibitors with each other. So as we were working on the new master plan, it became very clear that the mission statement that had been developed in that first master plan needed a revision. And so the part in red on this slide is the revision that we added from that master plan. So the new mission statement is to enrich the housing profession through promotion of best practices, professional development, connecting professionals within the region, collaborative sharing of ideas, and the examination of future trends relating to the administration of the physical, financial, social, and educational components of university and college housing programs. And again, we added that connecting professionals within the region based on all the feedback we were getting from that census. There's a very strong desire from the membership to get connected with each other beyond just the conference. So this mission statement was voted on during the February business meeting in Spokane and was approved by the membership. So as we were putting together the master plan, we developed 6 different focus areas. And those are diversity, accessibility and inclusion, financial stewardship, governance, member access and engagement, outreach and communication, and programs and services. And some of these names are the same or similar to what they were for the first master plan, but have whole new objectives within them. So we achieved some areas of financial stewardship or made some changes in governance, and now through the normal process of developing and evolving of a board, things have been added to that. So now we're going to go through these 6 of these and give more depth in terms of what the current situation has been and what the desired outcome will be through the 5 years working on this. So for diversity, accessibility, and inclusion, the current situation is as follows. Challenges have been identified in terms of accessibility of programs and services, diversity of representation, and inclusion of our membership. The association has created a preliminary structure to increase the organization's focus on diversity, accessibility, and inclusion. So that acknowledges that there's been some groundwork already done as this new master plan was being developed, such as adding in a diversity and inclusion committee that didn't exist before. The desired situation is that NWACUHO has a prevalent culture of diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all programs and services, and all members feel like they have a place in the organization and are able to participate. I'm going to pass it over to Josh now. We can't hear you, Josh. So I'll start talking about the current situation here until Josh gets going again. So for financial stewardship, the current situation is NWACUHO has sound financial policies and practices, and that again really comes from the work from the first master plan. But however, the revenue model is not sustainable for long-term growth and is over-reliant on corporate member and conference revenue. Membership continues to be cost sensitive. And again, this is something that came through in the feedback from the membership in the census. So our desired situation here is that NWACUHO continues to be financially accessible, afford a value to members, and operates with a sustainable financial model. And again, that's where we're hoping to move past the over-reliance upon corporate members. The next objective is governance. And the current situation with that one is volunteer positions are inherently difficult to maintain in respect to role clarity, accountability, and continuity of operations. Members report a lack of understanding of the context by which decisions are made. And again, as mentioned previously, transparency was something that came up a lot in So the desired situation here is that efficient, effective, and inclusive governance and operating structure for the association is present and is representative of the membership. I think that was Josh calling in.
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
All right.
So great. Yeah, I see where we are. So the member access and engagement area identified that we currently have heavy new professional involvement, and in some ways that makes sense if you look at the demographics of our profession. You've got a large number of entry to mid-level professionals, and then that pyramid gets narrower at the top, but that mid and senior level participation wanes kind of over time, and so opportunities for continued involvement are not well utilized, even though they may exist. And looking towards the desired situation, we look to create a culture of sustainable engagement, continued contribution, and opportunities for involvement for all levels. Additionally, working to articulate pathways to support progressive involvement for the association so that somebody who may be advancing in their career have progressively more challenging and meaningful opportunities to get engaged. And at some point that tide turns from being kind of personally fulfilled through engagement to kind of serving back to the organization if folks so choose.
Outreach and communication. Current situation there is communication channels incorporate modern functionality and reflect the needs of the association and Northwest NWACUHO's culture of personal connections. Communication efforts do not fully connect with the membership, and members report a lack of transparency in operations. And again, that hits on a couple of the themes that came out of the census information about transparency and the desire to have more connections beyond the conference. So the desired situation then is communication channels incorporate modern functionality and reflect the needs of the association, including the personalized nature of the culture of our region. Members are aware of Northwest NWACUHO programs and services, understand organizational decision-making processes, and historical records are well documented.
In the program and services arena, we observe that the annual conference is the most utilized Northwest NWACUHO program. However, there's a lack of depth and engagement in year-round initiatives. The offering and execution of other program initiatives is inconsistent. So this is kind of stepping back and saying, okay, are we consistent on our drive-in conferences or our webinars, and kind of looking at as a package at what happens outside of the annual conference. Moving towards the desired situation of having a comprehensive strategy for all programs and services, as is done for the annual conference, incorporating proposal, review, execution, and assessment cycles to offer year-round opportunities for focus and progressive engagement and involvement for the membership. As you've probably observed, right, these current situation and desired situation statements are relatively abstract. They're not necessarily specific goals or objectives. And so what we did after we developed these statements within the focus areas was to brainstorm a list of more specific objectives of, okay, so how do we bridge that gap from the current situation to the desired situation? What are specific initiatives that could be undertaken, or projects or analysis or reviews that can be done to move us towards that situation? And the idea is that this is a 5-year progressive plan. And so while Kathryn, do you remember how many objectives we ended up with?
I want to say it was 46.
There's a lot. So, that's a huge list, but they serve as building blocks for each other. And so what the board did at the annual conference, and will do so progressively each year, is identify, okay, what did we finish in the last year, and what does that set the stage for us to do in the future year? And by the way, are these objectives still relevant for where we are? Do we need to change course? And so master plan really creates a roadmap and a framework, but it doesn't lock the association into any specific thing. And so it puts that control back in the board's hands on any given year to adjust to priorities. So out of those huge number of objectives, we clumped and clustered those into projects, which were then prioritized. And so what you see on the screen are the projects that were deemed high priority. So kind of first in that progressive cumulative process of executing objectives. And so these areas may have 1, 2, 3, or 5 specific objectives underneath them, but these are the things that the board should be looking at in year 1 and 2, which will then set the stage for 3, 4, and 5 down the road. And they may be things you may anticipate: a board structure review, looking at corporate member engagement, social media, website design, a curricular approach to programs and services, program structure, access and inclusion, a financial model review, volunteer leadership accountability, history documentation, a values-based decision matrix, and then a member institution outreach plan. And there was some attention paid to both who needs to be involved in executing these projects, because you don't want to tax any specific position or group too much. So these represent an opportunity for both general member engagement and board work, but also projects that both look internally facing, so the operations of NWACUHO as an entity, and outward facing at the membership and how that it touches their experience. There were 4 specific areas in these projects that were identified with a need and desire for general member engagement. And these, as Kathryn will talk about in a minute, map to some of the committee work that will be done over the next year. But the specific areas are the development of a curricular approach to programs and services, promoting access and inclusion, documenting the history, and then a member institution outreach plan. We wanted to, through this process, create that roadmap for committees that give some tactical, real meaty things for them to work on.
And as Josh was just mentioning, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the board of directors who were working on reaching those objectives and goals through the master plan. The master plan progress is updated on the NWACUHO website, and there's always opportunity and areas for members at large to get involved. But these are the areas that we identified as wanting specific partnership with the variety of committees that we have. So we're asking that the Professional Development Committee work on the curricular approach to programs and services. We see a lot of parallels between what the objectives of the Professional Development Committee are and what we're looking for within that particular element within the master plan. Similarly, we would ask the Diversity and Inclusion Committee to work on the promoting access and inclusion elements within the master plan. We are asking the Communications Committee to begin that documentation of the history of NWACUHO. And in that one, we identified it as something that's important to do because we have a number of past presidents who are still very involved and active in the region. So we want to make sure that from that perspective, we're able to capture the information that they have and the knowledge that they have about previous experiences with the board of directors. So it doesn't seem that every year that the board is having to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. We're looking for ways to draw upon the previous experience from previous leaders within the associations. The current board can move forward. And then finally, we've asked the Membership Engagement Committee to work on member institution outreach in that plan that coincides with that. So again, we're looking for ways to include the membership in the master plan achievement process. And again, we've got the information about the master plan up on the website. And it's my understanding the board of directors will continue to keep this page updated with the progress over the next 5 years. And that's one of the things that I want to just touch on really quick. So there's about 43, 46 different objectives in this master plan. Part of what the board of directors will be doing is figuring out what is reasonable to be achieved in each year. I know that there's a lot of achievers in that group, and that's one reason people choose to be in leadership positions. And it can be easy to say we need to start getting as many of these done as quickly as we can, and that's not the plan at all. There's a reason that it's a 5-year master plan. You shouldn't wear yourself out getting things done right away and leave the stuff toward the last couple of years that are less desirable to work on. So I know the board of directors before the conference met and really went through everything within the master plan and worked on mapping out a roadmap of how to achieve these goals over 5 years. So with that, we have gone through all of the content that we have, and we would love to open it up for any questions you might have.
And just feel free to put
Thanks,
anything
Josh
in the
and
chat
Kathryn.
box that you have.
Exactly what I was about to say, Josh. Thank you. If you do have any questions, just type into that chat box, and we'll take care of them. We'll give people a few seconds to chat. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact and have questions, please check the website and get in touch with anybody of the presidential trio, because we'll be able to answer your questions if they're not live questions during our webinar today. And with that, not seeing any questions being asked right now. So thank you again, Kathryn and Josh, for this presentation, and thank you both for all of your work on this master plan. The future of the association is certainly bright with this strategy in place. And thank you to our attendees for coming. One final reminder to please follow the webinar feedback form link in the bottom right-hand side of your screen underneath the important links, or if you're on YouTube, check out the descriptions of the video for that link, and let us know how we did today and what you'd like to see with the First Friday webinar program. Thank you all for coming, and I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and that this proved to be a great start to the month of March.
Thank you.